John McCarthy was born April 25th, 1953. I was born one day earlier. It's the only thing I ever really had over Mac. Mac and I were in the same kindergarten class. We grew up 2 blocks from each other in Mineola. Mineola was a middle class, even slightly lower middle class neighborhood on Long Island. My Mineola was a place where families sat down together for dinner, where fathers taught their sons how to keep the family car running, how to make needed repairs on the house. You learned what you had to do to make it through. Marie did this to me. Mineola was a place, like I said, it wasn't an affluent place. And our education was a little different. There were many things we never learned, many things that were never taught to us. For example, in high school sports, no one taught us that we couldn't achieve our objectives. As we practiced to play teams that were better prepared, larger teams, perhaps better coached. No one told us, don't bother trying to practice to win that game. Don't bother, you won't win. But we did practice, we did our hardest. When we went out to play those games, we won those games. What do we know? And as we prepared for college, no one told us we couldn't achieve our dreams of going to college. No one said, don't bother filling out the applications. You're not going to get into the good schools. You're not going to graduate. So we prepared our applications, and we got into schools. Some of us got into good schools, and some graduated with advanced degrees. And when we graduated college during the recession in the mid-'70s, no one taught us that we shouldn't bother looking for jobs, that we shouldn't, try, that we shouldn't be determined. And so when we looked for jobs, some of us with advanced degrees, maybe our first job was pumping gas. But we were determined, we found gainful employment. I give you these examples because maybe you'll understand when I tell you that when John was diagnosed with cancer, he never took it as a death sentence. It was just another thing that John was presented in life that he'd have to deal with, that he'd have to think through. And with Debbie, that's what he did. They assessed their situation, they pursued a course of action, and he did what he did to keep going through his life. And all the while he did this, he lived his life. He saw his friends, family, he traveled, he followed his beloved lacrosse, he tended his garden. Cancer affected John's life, but he wouldn't let it affect his living. My expression about John was, he never let life get in the way of living. About a year ago, just before John was supposed to be operated on, his high school teammates decided to have a fundraiser. It was a typical Mineola affair. And the word was put out. Show up at the Knights of Columbus, have a few beers, and throw some money in the pot for Mac. John wasn't told about this, of course. The money would simply show up along with his signed jersey a few days later. And John would know that his buddies were thinking about him. A week before the fundraiser, John found out about it, and he called me. He said, "Big, they're having a fundraiser for me?" And I admitted yes. He goes, "I don't want the money." I said, "I know, man. But these guys, they don't know what to do. They have to do something. I said, you have to let them do this. You have to let them say thank you. I said, say thank you? For what?
Yep.
You see, there is a place far back in the deep recess of our mind. It's a dark place. It's a lonely place. A place full of uncertainty and with many unanswerable questions. It's a place you do not want to go to. And yet eventually, each of us has traveled it. This place, it is where we must come face to face with the reality that our time here on this earth is at its end. For many, this journey is quick. For others, like John, the journey is long. As individuals, we know not how we will act on this journey. Will we be bitter? Will fear paralyze us in our tracks? Or will anger take control, causing us to reject those whom we know and love, those very people we need at that time in our life? We all watched John as he made this journey. And we saw him do it with grace. We saw him do it with strength of character. We saw him do it with dignity. We saw him do it with a deep appreciation for the life he lived and for those whom he shared that life with. John's high school teammates, those boys, now men who connect so strongly with John, they watched him make this journey also. John taught us how we might act one day when we take our own journey. That was something we did learn. And for that, we are eternally grateful. For that, we need to thank him. So, my friend, it comes time to say goodbye. This road of life that we have traveled on together, that road now splits. We take different paths from here. One day these paths will cross. And once again, we'll journey together. Once again, we'll tell our stories. Once again,